The people of these neighboring nations lived side by side, their histories intertwined through trade, marriage, and shared traditions. The Horn of Africa was once a tapestry of communities that moved freely across what would later become a heavily fortified border. Yet, beneath the surface, political tensions simmered, setting the stage for a dramatic rupture. Eritrea's 1993 independence, after a 30-year struggle, left Ethiopia landlocked, and both nations nursing deep grievances. For Eritreans, independence was a hard-won victory and a moment of national pride. For Ethiopians, it was a painful loss, not just of territory, but of access to the sea and a sense of regional unity. The wounds of separation ran deep, fueling suspicion and resentment on both sides. Hopes for peaceful coexistence quickly faded, replaced by a devastating border war in 1998 that killed tens of thousands and entrenched animosity. The conflict left scars, not only on the land, but on the collective memory of both peoples. Families were divided, towns destroyed, and the border became a symbol of loss and hostility. For years, the border was a militarized no man's land, with both governments supporting proxy conflicts. The region became synonymous with tension and uncertainty, as soldiers watched each other from across barbed wire, and civilians lived in fear of renewed violence. In 2018, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's peace overture briefly thawed relations, bringing hope to millions on both sides of the border. Streets filled with celebration, families reunited, and the world watched as two old foes embraced. But the alliance proved fragile. Eritrean troops later fought alongside Ethiopia in Tigray, only for ties to sour again after the war ended in 2022. The promise of lasting peace slipped away, replaced by renewed suspicion. By late 2025, tensions have returned to dangerous levels, echoing the darkest days of their rivalry. Military buildups and harsh rhetoric have once again become the norm, as both sides brace for the possibility of another conflict. The 2018 peace deal is a distant memory, replaced by accusations and military posturing. Diplomatic channels have all but closed, and the fragile trust built over years has crumbled. Decades of mistrust have resurfaced, pushing both nations perilously close to renewed conflict. For the people living along the border, the hope for peace has once again given way to fear and uncertainty, as the shadow of war looms ever larger. Ethiopia has formally accused Eritrea of plotting to ignite a new war, a move that has sent shockwaves through the international community. The Ethiopian government claims that Eritrea is not only meddling in its internal affairs, but is actively working to destabilize the region. This accusation has escalated the crisis to the international stage, drawing the attention of global powers and international organizations. In a detailed letter to the UN, Ethiopia alleges that Eritrea is orchestrating a coalition of armed groups, including remnants of the TPLF and the Fano militia, to destabilize Ethiopia. The letter outlines a series of alleged covert operations and support mechanisms that Eritrea is supposedly providing to these groups. The claim is especially jarring, given Eritrea and Ethiopia were recently allies against the TPLF. This sudden shift in alliances has left many analysts puzzled and concerned about the future stability of the Horn of Africa. Addis Ababa insists Eritrea is training and supporting these groups to open multiple fronts of instability. The Ethiopian government argues that these actions are part of a broader strategy by Eritrea to weaken Ethiopia's central authority and create chaos. Ethiopia also blames Eritrea for fueling the Amhara region's insurgency, arguing it's part of a broader strategy to weaken the government. The Ethiopian government has presented what it claims is evidence of Eritrean involvement in these insurgencies. By appealing to the UN, Ethiopia seeks to brand Eritrea as the aggressor and rally international condemnation. The Ethiopian government hopes that international pressure will force Eritrea to cease its alleged destabilizing activities. The move signals a breakdown in diplomacy and a dangerous escalation in this volatile relationship. The international community now watches closely, hoping for a peaceful resolution but preparing for the worst. Ethiopian officials claim Eritrea is behind a so-called Tsimdo alliance, a coalition of anti-government forces aiming to destabilize Ethiopia. The alleged alliance's goals: reignite conflict in the north, weaken Abiy Ahmed's government, and distract Ethiopia from its Red Sea ambitions. Authorities point to attacks like the Fano militia's assault on Voldia as evidence of Eritrean coordination. This narrative reframes internal rebellions as foreign-backed plots, justifying harsher crackdowns. Critics argue the Tsimdo story may be a political tool to deflect from Ethiopia's own challenges. Whether real or not, the accusation has raised the stakes and deepened public anxiety. The specter of a shadowy alliance now looms over the region's fragile peace. Ethiopia's landlocked status is a national obsession, fueling its quest for Red Sea access since losing its coastline in 1993. Dependent on Djibouti's port, Ethiopia's leaders see this as an economic and strategic vulnerability. In 2023, Abiy Ahmed declared sea access an existential right, alarming neighbors, especially Eritrea. Eritrea views Ethiopia's ambitions as a direct threat to its sovereignty, particularly over the port of Assab. The clash is fundamental. Ethiopia seeks economic lifelines. Eritrea defends hard-won independence. This zero-sum standoff makes compromise elusive and raises the risk of confrontation. Every move toward the sea is seen as provocation, pushing both nations closer to conflict. Eritrea's response to Ethiopia's accusations has been official silence. President Isaias Afwerki has not addressed the claims. Instead, Eritrean media mocks Ethiopia's obsession with the sea, framing Abiy's rhetoric as a distraction from internal crises. This strategy projects calm for domestic audiences and avoids legitimizing Ethiopia's charges. Eritrea's ambiguity keeps the world guessing and maintains strategic flexibility. Meanwhile, Asmara quietly strengthens ties with regional powers like Egypt, building alliances against Ethiopia's growing assertiveness. The message: Eritrea will not be isolated or intimidated. Silence, paired with subtle diplomacy, is Eritrea's chosen weapon in this standoff. The Tigray People's Liberation Front, now leading Tigray's interim administration, vehemently denies any alliance with Eritrea. TPLF leaders call the accusations fabrications, insisting their focus is on rebuilding after the devastating war. They argue that partnering with Eritrea, their former enemy, would betray Tigrayans desperate for peace. Instead, the TPLF accuses Addis Ababa of stalling the peace process and using the Tsimdo story to justify military presence in Tigray. This mutual distrust highlights the region's unresolved tensions and the fragility of the Pretoria peace agreement. The TPLF's denial adds another layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. The war of words is now matched by military buildup along the Ethiopia-Eritrea border. Satellite images show Eritrean troops conducting drills near flashpoints like Bure and Zalambesa. Ethiopia has responded by deploying special forces and reinforcing border positions, framing it as defense but fueling tension. The risk: a single miscalculation could trigger a full-scale war. Ethiopia also accuses Eritrea of supporting proxy forces like the Fano militia, threatening to open new fronts inside Ethiopia. The fragile peace of recent years has evaporated. The border is once again a militarized frontier. Cross-border movement is restricted, and local economies suffer. The specter of past wars hangs heavy as both sides prepare for the worst. For border communities in Tigray and Amhara, renewed tensions mean fear and hardship, not abstract politics. Many are still recovering from the last war, counting their dead, rebuilding homes, and clinging to fragile hope. Military buildup has choked off trade and daily life, deepening economic and humanitarian crises. Farmers fear their fields, traders are idle, and families are paralyzed by anxiety. The psychological toll is immense. Rumors and uncertainty make planning for the future impossible. The hope sparked by the Pretoria peace agreement is fading, replaced by resignation to endless conflict. Ordinary civilians pay the highest price, displaced, bereaved, and voiceless. Their plea is simple: peace, stability, and a future free from the ambitions of distant leaders. Regional experts warn that the risk of war between Ethiopia and Eritrea is dangerously high, even if neither government truly desires open conflict. The situation is tense, with both sides locked in a cycle of suspicion and fear. Decades of mistrust and unresolved grievances have left the border region on edge, and even a small miscalculation could trigger a wider crisis. Both nations are facing severe economic strain, and their militaries are depleted after years of tension and sporadic clashes. For ordinary people, daily life is marked by uncertainty. Markets are empty, jobs are scarce, and families struggle to make ends meet. Another conflict would be catastrophic, not just for soldiers, but for millions of civilians already living on the edge. Yet, despite these hardships, both governments continue military posturing and fuel nationalist rhetoric. Parades, rallies, and speeches stoke patriotic fervor, creating a volatile environment where escalation is always a possibility. The atmosphere is charged, and even minor incidents risk spiraling out of control. The classic security dilemma is at play. Each side's efforts to bolster its own defenses are seen as direct threats by the other. This mutual suspicion leads to a dangerous cycle of action and reaction, with both militaries on high alert and trust in short supply. International mediation is more crucial than ever, but the world's attention is limited. Both governments are wary of outside interference, often resisting diplomatic pressure and preferring to handle disputes on their own terms. This reluctance makes progress slow and fragile. Still, there are glimmers of hope. Only a creative compromise, one that addresses Ethiopia's urgent economic needs without threatening Eritrea's sovereignty, offers a real chance for lasting peace. Local communities and some officials are quietly working together, seeking solutions that benefit both sides. The choice between war and peace hangs in the balance,